Time to wake up. It's Saturday morning. Find some milk and cereal. Grab a bowl and spoon. No, a bigger spoon. Head to the living room and take a seat on the floor while Joseph and Chris present to you Saturday Morning Cartoon!
Hello everybody, welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoon Boom. This is a show where we wake up with the Saturday morning sun, pop down on the floor with a big bowl of sugary cereal, and we'll try your favorite cartoons, both old and new. I'm Joseph.
And I'm Chris.
And this morning, for the last episode of our October celebration, we watched Vampire Hunter D, Bloodlust.
We got the D. We got the Vampire Hunter D. I wonder
Somebody
if that's
requested the D, and we took it for them.
Yes.
Who requested the D?
Actually, you did.
I did.
You obliged yourself.
Yeah. Oh. The movie Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust came out in the year 2000, directed by Yoshiaki Kawahiri, based on the Vampire Hunter D manga written by Hideyuki Kikuchi, produced by Madhouse Inc., and there was actually a limited theatrical release for this in 6 theaters across the U.S. So, well, I say across the U.S., that's really very few
so
theaters.
Not a lot of people saw it in theaters, is what you're saying.
Extremely limited. I think that they grossed about, at least on the opening of it in the U.S., about $25,000 or something. So
I thought you were going to say like
really,
$25.
Oh, well, I mean, relatively short.
That's what that remake of Baywatch got. $25.
Oh, and it was yours.
It was mine.
Yeah.
I got to see The Rock, man.
Of course.
That dude's got some muscles. For days.
Yeah. So, Chris, who are some of the actors who played in this movie?
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say the English actor, and then I will say the Japanese actor in that order. So the voice of D was Andy Philpott and Hideyuki Tanaka. The voice of Meyer was John Rafferty Lee and Koichi Yamadera. The voice of Layla was Pamela Segal and Megumi Hayashibara. The voice of Charlotte was Wendy Lee and Emi Shinohara. The voice of Dee's left hand, we will explain that later, was Mike McShane and Ichiro Nagai. The voice of Carmilla was Julie Fletcher and Beverly Maida. The voice of Borgoth, Matt McKenzie and Yusaku Yara. The voice of Nolt, John DiMaggio and Ryuzaburo Otomo. The voice of Kyle, Alex Fernandez and Hochu Tsuka. And the voice of Grove, Jack Fletcher and Seki Toshihiko. Whew! Every time, man. It's a real workout for my mouth.
So we're watching the D, and you got a real workout for your mouth.
That's true.
Got it. You probably saw this, but something that I noticed was, so Layla's voice actress was the voice actress for King of the Hill's Bobby Hill.
Oh my God, I didn't even look at that. Wait, yeah. So I didn't realize Bobby was voiced by a woman. That's crazy.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. I just love that show, so it stood out to me. So for a short synopsis, when a girl is abducted by a vampire, a legendary bounty hunter is hired to bring her back. That is very basic, but pretty much
very
covers
true. It's giving you what you need to know.
With no excess whatsoever.
With like no spoilers or anything, but like there's so much more to this movie going on. It's insane. It's
pretty crazy, but crazy awesome, I think is what you meant to say.
Crazy awesome, but crazy nonetheless.
But crazy. Yeah, no. That's true also. Yeah. So for a few tasty marshmallows out of our big bowl of Vampire Hunter D cereal, the story of Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust is based on the 3rd novel in Kikuchi's series D, Demon Death Chase. The idea for a new Vampire Hunter D film came after there was a fan demand to make a follow-up to Vampire Hunter D from 1985. Hideyuki Kikuchi was also in favor of this, as he had often complained about the cheapness in the look of the original film. And that's 1985 animation, so it did definitely look much cheaper, but the animation in this film is just top-notch.
Yeah. Okay, so was Vampire Hunter D, was that ever a series, or was it always movies?
No, it was never like an anime series. It started as a manga, and then it got turned into just movies. These 2 movies, as far as I know. I don't think there's been any additional ones.
Got it. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And unlike most animes, English is actually the original language for this one, and the English track was finished before the Japanese track was, and this was actually released in America before it was released in Japan.
Which is super weird, because this was created by, like, Japanese production teams and a Japanese writer and stuff, so
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly why that is, but it is strange. Kind of stands out.
I like it. We're taking it from them.
We took it. And the film accidentally mistranslated the word Dampier to Dunpeel in the English language. Right. So because like a half vampire, the correct way to say it is Dampier, which is like teeth, and then pier, which is to drink. So it's like to drink with your teeth, basically. Right. And that's that's the half human, half vampire. But it is Dunpeel here, which, you just kind of have to work with because that's what you got. And I was wondering, like,
real stupid. Like, I was like, who the hell came up with that?
If that was like D's name, like if that's what it actually stood for, since he doesn't really have a name. Like, I don't think his name is like Dave or anything. No. Vampire Hunter Dave.
Or Dylan.
Dylan. Oh, of course.
I like that. Vampire Hunter Dylan. Yeah, so I guess he didn't even get a real name. They just call him Dunpeel because that's what he is. They'd be like calling me white guy.
Yeah,
like,
that's about right.
Vampire Hunter white boy. They just call him W for short.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that's the reason behind it.
Yeah.
So do you have any memories of this? Have you seen it before?
No, the first time I heard about it was when you brought it up. So I know nothing, Joseph. I know nothing.
You know nothing, white boy.
You would be surprised how many times I hear that in a day.
From me?
From everyone.
Oh.
Even my own parents.
They specifically say, you know nothing, white boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
I think it's real weird.
I've actually seen this movie a few times myself. Back in high school, I first saw it, and then I've watched it a couple times since because I just love this movie. I just think it's great, but we'll go ahead and start talking about it, and I'll go into my reasons why.
Sweet.
What were your initial impressions of it as you started watching it?
At first, the first several minutes, I had no idea what was happening. I got really lost real quick. So I paused it, looked up some info, mainly looked up character names and stuff because I was a little not sure who people were. I had missed the part where a second team had been hired alongside of just D. So this guy and his son hire a team of mercenaries separately. They hire D, who is the vampire hunter, to go after this woman, Charlotte, who is their, daughter and sister, and get her back. And the dad's kind of bring her back alive, or if because she was taken by a vampire named Meyer, if she's been turned, kill her humanely and, without pain, and bring her corpse back or something like that. So I missed the part because they just kind of said it in passing that they had hired another team already. So once the other team came in, I was like, wait, who the is this? And then I got real confused. So then I stopped, read a little bit about the plot and the character names, went back, started over, and then I'm like, okay, all right, now I'm on board. But that was my mistake.
But the
Marcus brothers. But the first thing I really noticed was the animation was super cool looking. The light and the shadow were done super, it was just real cool. It was a way that I haven't really seen much of before, and I don't really know how to describe it honestly, in that the shadow just seemed kind of hyper realistic in a way, but I loved it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting, just the design of this universe as a whole, because it's kind of like gothic, but also futuristic in a way.
It's like a gothic Dune.
Yeah, because there's those robo horses, and then there's the spaceships and things. So it's there's future tech
and deserts,
but a lot of it's very much old style. Even weaponry looks very steampunk. So you've got the Marcus brothers and D at the same time trying to find Charlotte, who is the daughter that was kidnapped, and they're all bounty hunters. So their current target, like you said, is Meyer Link, who is the vampire who has taken Charlotte. We get to a point where there's a confrontation in the kind of a tunnel that they're going through, because he's got her aboard his carriage, I guess. What is it called? Yeah, carriage.
Well, there was one part, the first scene we really get of that mercenary group, which is the Marcus brothers, and that consists of Borgoff, Nolt, Kyle, Grove, and Layla. like the first like big thing we see of them is they end up fighting a bunch of zombies. And man, those are cool zombies. They are.
Oh, yeah.
Like at first I thought they were either werewolves or vampires because of how vicious they were and they had like long teeth and stuff. And then they said they were zombies and I was like, holy crap. And, they're rising from the ground and stuff. But man, that was like, those were like probably the scariest animated zombies I've ever seen in my life.
Well, they're also very fast moving too. Like they're not just like running or walking quickly. They're jumping around. Like they're agile.
Yeah. And that's part of the reason why at first I thought they were like werewolves or something.
But this is where you get to see really all the Marcus brothers showing off their skills. Cause they all are kind of like the stereotype of, well, I mean, not like specific stereotypes, but you've got your big brute who is Nolt and he's got just that giant like hammer with him or that spike driver thing, whatever it is.
That dude's awesome. He's got like a big cross painted on his face. He's just super cool.
Yeah, Kyle has these little hand blades that he spins around, kind of like a helicopter style.
Yeah, Borgoff uses like arrows and stuff. He's got like light arrows or something. I don't know exactly what they are, but he shoots a lot of them at once. They
might be like holy, like blessed arrows or something, because it seems like
I think they are
if they hit their target. Well, I don't even know for sure because he doesn't always like instantly kill stuff, but they do move kind of, I mean, it's an anime, so it's hard to say, but maybe he's like just picking just the right amount of wind because sometimes it looks like they turn in midair.
That'll come into play too when they first meet D. He does something pretty cool with one arrow, but, and then we also have Layla, who I can't remember what she had. Was it just like guns or something?
Yeah, she just had basically her big gun.
Okay.
No, well, big like handgun.
She kind of keeps leaving the group, so she's not in a whole lot of the fights with them. And then the last one is Grove, and in this fight, he does nothing because he's like an old decrepit dude inside of like their tank. And he just kind of lays there and looks like a Holocaust survivor. He's just skin and bones looking terrible.
He has a very specific power, but anytime he uses it, it drains him more. And my impression, I don't know for sure, and it's probably explained in the manga, but my impression is that he's done this so many times before. It's just kind of taken its toll on his body, and that's why he is the way he is. Not necessarily because he's old or anything, but he's probably just been drained to the point where he's, like you said, skin and bones.
Yeah, it could be, because anytime they want him to use his powers, they have to inject him with something that I think gives him like some strength back or something like that. And it seems like when he does do that too, like the rest of the team is kind of concerned and they only use it if they absolutely have to, because he's the most powerful of all of them, but he's also like super close to death at pretty much all times.
Most powerful, but also most vulnerable. It's kind of like a glass cannon in that way.
A glass cannon. I like that phrase. Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Did you just make that up?
No, it's a phrase.
Oh, that's dumb.
You never heard that before?
Nah.
Well, then I made it up.
Okay.
I take credit.
I've heard of glass machine guns, but...
Really? No, never heard that.
No, I haven't. And then, so like, they kind of finished their fight, and then I think it was, Borgoff hears some, like a horse off in the distance, so he's like, watch this, haha, shoots an arrow, and it looks like it flies forever, and frickin' D just catches it out of the air in his hand and breaks it in half, and I was like, dang, like this dude's awesome.
Like he catches it right in front of his face, and everybody else is like super impressed by it.
Yeah, and he's just like, whatever.
As they should be.
Yeah, he doesn't even really say much or anything. They're just like, what's your name? He's like, D. And they're like, cool.
Well, they're just like, we're after the same target. Just join us. And I think he just said something like he works alone, or maybe he didn't say anything at all. Just walked away.
Well, I mean, he's a lone wolf, man. He does it a lot. He's a lone D.
Lone D.
Yeah. The part that I thought was the most interesting of this whole movie was when they get into that tunnel with the Barbaroy. Like, I don't know what they're supposed to be, but they are freaky as hell.
It's like a collection of like misfit kind of mutants and monsters and things.
Yeah, I don't know. They don't really explain what it is. It's just a lot of creepy looking stuff, and not a single one of them look alike. It's all just weird. Some of them look humanish. Some of them look like demons. Some of them look like straight up animal hybrids or something. I don't know what's going on, but they're all creepy, and they all have looks like they all have special abilities and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, they're kind of like self-serving, and they try to protect like other creatures of the night well, in this case, because they're being paid to.
Their leader, the Barbaroi leader, is this old man looking guy on a tricycle that just he scoots around in circles because he's got nothing better to do. He's old.
It's not even, is it a tricycle or is it like a unicycle? No, it is a tricycle.
I think it's a little tricycle. Right. He's just on this little child's tricycle, like going around in circles.
D is basically like trying to offer him more money so that they stop protecting Meyer Link, and I guess they just don't go back on their deal. So he's like, well, now we can't let you leave. Now you have to die. And so he's literally going to attack D with his entire army. And at that point, you're thinking like, well, D's probably going to lose. Like, this is a huge amount of people against him, just him. Yeah, and then that's where we actually get to see Grove come into play. And you just see this spirit of Grove come like floating in, like literally floating in.
Big old grin on his face.
Yeah, he's super happy. I guess he's like almost like has a high or something.
Yeah, he looks really young. He looks baked out of his mind, and he's having a good time.
But what's happening is like these blasts are just erupting from just all over his body, not even like specific spots, just like blasting everything in sight.
Oh yeah, he's a big old laser light show, but his lights like actually blow things up. So he's just like floating around, being all smiley, and just everything is dying and exploding around him. It's pretty crazy. But like once it gets to a certain point and D kind of gets face to face with him and he tries to kill D, and D's just like, nah, and slices that laser light show in half.
Oh yeah. And that's what kind of, it sends him into like, a seizure back in his real life. Like his kind of soul gets sucked back in.
Yeah.
And it sends him into almost cardiac arrest. And so they have to take care of him at that point again.
Yeah. I kind of thought that was going to kill him, but I guess not. Because
that's what it looked like at
first. Didn't know if you severed his soul, if that would kill the guy. But I guess it just goes back to his body. It just really friggin' hurts.
Yeah, I would imagine getting your soul sliced would probably hurt.
Nah, I mean, not as bad as you think.
I think this is the point where D is chasing Meyer Link through the tunnel. Well, Meyer Link is like, you're a fool to fight a vampire in the darkness or at night. And while D's trying to like slice through him, he's literally just like almost teleporting around. Like,
right.
He has no chance against him, like in the darkness at night. And he's about to strike him in a certain way. And then Charlotte calls out to him because he's trying to convince D that she's there. She's not there against her own will. Like she wants to be there and she wanted to be taken away. And that's kind of a surprise if it's your first time seeing this to the audience, because it's like, oh, maybe it's not as cut and dry as it seemed when her dad and brother sent D and the other bounty hunters after him. Like maybe there's more to this.
Well, and two, like at the very beginning of the movie, they show you her being taken. And it makes it look like she's being kidnapped, but I think it was maybe she just got startled at first. But yeah, she's in love with the guy. And D's like, what the hell? Like, this isn't what I signed up for. What is this? But he's like determined anyway. He's like, well, I'm still going to do it.
Because he still just doesn't trust vampires anyway. So he still thinks vampires should be extinct and doesn't want to help them continue their bloodline.
And that's just racist. So, parents, talk to your kids about that. That's horrible. And we see the Marcus brothers again. They get kind of assaulted by this one specific Barbaroi who kills the big guy.
The shadow one.
That guy was awesome. Yeah, this shadow dude. And he's awesome because he's creepy and he sounds like Mark Hamill's Joker when he talks and laughs and stuff, which is kind of fun. But he kind of like, he can disappear into shadows and like, it's like he melts with the shadows and then he can like go into one shadow, pop out of another shadow, stuff like that. So that was kind of cool. I liked that. And I think it was around this time that, Layla was just like, peace out, bruh. And she just kind of ditches the other guys and goes out on her own, trying to chase after, Meyer. And, you kind of find some things out about her as the story progresses as why she's so hell-bent on doing this, because she's not in it for the money like the others really are. I mean, she wants money. She makes that very clear, but she's got other motives, but she just makes some weird decisions that I'm not sure why she makes them, even having watched this whole thing. But, maybe
Her family was killed by vampires, and just to keep it short, and she was kind of adopted into the Marcus Brothers clan, I guess, or group, so that she could become a bounty hunter and hunt down the creatures that killed her family. That's what Dee suspects initially because of the way she's acting, because she just doesn't seem, like you said, like they are. She doesn't have the same motivation they do. She's out almost for revenge on just vampire kind in general.
Right, and that's why I thought it was weird that she ditches the Marcus Brothers, goes after Maya herself, almost gets killed, like she would have been killed, but Dee actually saved her, and that's how Meyer gets away. He saves her life, patches her up, things like that, and she gets pissed about it later when she wakes up.
Well, she does return the favor, though.
Yeah, but she does some other things before that, which I thought were weird. But around this time is where we get introduced to Dee's hand.
Oh, yeah.
When we reviewed that one anime, Parasite, it's kind of like that. He's got a talking dude in his hand.
It is a parasite that's in his hand, but it's almost like mutually beneficial because it does absorb certain things like spells and, I guess, spirits of some sort. So it has its advantages, but it's also almost the comic relief of this movie.
Oh yeah, it's goofy. It talks really funny, and it reminds me of a mix between that thing from Parasite and also if you watch Inuyasha, there's that guy. I can't remember his name all of a sudden because it's been years since I watched it, but he's got a curse where he has a wind tunnel. So it's like he has to keep his hand wrapped up because if he unwraps it, like there's like almost like a black hole in his hand that sucks everything in.
Weird.
Yeah, which is kind of cool, but like it's kind of like a mix of both of those. It's like this sentient other personality that can talk and can even form a face on his hand. It looks like an old man, but it can also like absorb magic, things like that in this film. So I thought that was really interesting, kind of cool.
I don't know much more about him other than what is just shown in this movie, which isn't much, really. It's just he's here. There's no explanation. You accept it and you move on.
He cracks a few jokes every once in a while. His hands do. So
also, since Dee is half vampire, and vampires in this universe are weak to sunlight, and they essentially catch fire if they're exposed to sunlight. Except being a half vampire, Dee is just weakened by it over time. Like he doesn't burst into flames or anything, but the longer he's in it, the worse off he gets, to the point where he has to bury himself in the ground in order to recuperate.
Right.
And that's where Layla comes in to save him, because there's also this Barbaroi who is almost like she's a master of like the elements.
She's a magic poison ivy from Batman. Basically.
Well, kind of, but not even just plants. Like because she does go through the Marcus Brothers truck.
Oh, that's true. And the earth.
She kind of turns into steel.
She can absorb herself into other elements and then manipulate them. So like, she does go through the truck and messes them up a little bit. Her, like, for the most part, it was like in that forest, she was getting inside the trees. Right. And like, using the trees to attack them and stuff. And then she sinks through the ground at one point and like hardens herself to dodge an attack, things like that. Which that was a cool one too. She
gets in a real heavy fight with Dee in this forest, and it keeps coming to the point where it seems like she's dead. And at a certain point, he decapitates her, and you see her head just hanging there as he goes to kind of put himself in the ground to recuperate from the overdose of sunlight. But at that point, like, you see her face kind of start moving and she comes back to life, and you're like, oh man, like, he's in a very vulnerable position right now. And that's where Layla comes in to return the favor. Not even necessarily because she did it on purpose, but I think if it weren't for lightning striking, I don't think she would have won that battle.
This is the reason why I was really confused about what Layla was doing. So there is a scene kind of in between the two we talked about where everyone ends up at this town, like in the desert. Oh, and you see sand mantas. These giant manta rays that jump out of the sand and go back in. They're awesome. Love sand mantas. But anyway, so there's this town and there's this little thing going on where I guess they're resting up, loading up, getting ammo, things like that. Dee needs a new horse. He's going to this guy to buy a horse. And Layla talks to the sheriff and basically tells him that Dee is there and they don't allow Dunpeel there. So like she's like starting trouble for him on purpose, like trying to get him killed, even though he had just saved her life, the day before. So I thought that was kind of weird. There is this really cool story where this old man he's buying the horse from, his name's Polk, and he's kind of telling the sheriff and these guys that have their guns trained on Dee, he's like, let me tell you this story about like a long time ago. These kids went missing and vampires were suspected. This famous vampire hunter came and like saved the kids when no one else could, stuff like that. And then it's revealed that, yeah, Dee was the guy and that Polk was one of the kids, and Polk's like an old man now. So I thought that was really awesome. But Polk was basically like, I'm going to kill you, sheriff, if you don't let him go. And so Dee gets away with his horse that way. But so this is why I was confused, was like, so Dee saves Layla. Layla tries to get him killed after the fact. And then like the next day when Dee almost dies, she saves his life. And I'm like, I don't understand where that change came.
Well, because she's still she's still against vampires. And so she's been kind of following him around to see what he's up to and kind of takes a chance to undercut him where she can. But then she is at the window and hears that story too, the story that Polk tells. Yeah, and that's kind of where her change of heart comes in, where she's like, oh, well, maybe he's not such a bad guy. And so it's kind of a relationship that's developing as the movie goes on. But her being separated from the brothers is a perfect way for her to get all of the information on him and kind of see what his motives are and see what kind of person he is. I think her initial intention was to take him out, but
yeah, definitely.
Now that she's heard this, she's sort of had a change of heart, but not to the point where she's like, oh, we're best buds now. She still is cautiously optimistic towards him, or being very cautious towards him. And that's at the point where I think it's after they both save each other, and she's even then, even when he's still on the ground and he wakes up, I think she points her gun at him and she's like, don't get any ideas. I'm just here until the rain lets up. But then it comes to the point where she says that the rain kind of makes her more sensitive, and so she's just kind of letting out some feelings.
As that happens to women. I mean, everybody knows that.
And so she's telling him basically at the end of the day, it's let's make a deal that whichever one of us survives this, they'll come to the other's grave and with flowers because
part of the deal.
Neither of them thinks that they're going to have many mourners. So it's kind of just a little pact that they make, and Dee agrees to it. So that's a nice moment, but you don't know how it's going to come into play until much later.
Yeah, and then things start kind of coming to a head where, so two of those Barbaroi get killed. The shadow guy gets killed by the mercenary guys. Layla killed the other one. There's a third one who's kind of a wolfmanish dude, I guess. And they are heading to Carmilla's castle. They're right outside it, going across this bridge. Part of it blows up, and it turns out so the Marcus brothers had gotten there a little bit ahead of time, set some explosives, kind of trapped them basically. And, they knock the wolf guy off of the bridge, and they're about to kill, or they grab the girl, Charlotte, out of the carriage, and they're like, yeah, we got her. Let's do this. Meyer walks out into the sunlight, just burning the crap out of himself. And he's just trying to walk closer and closer, and they keep shooting him full of arrows and all kinds of stuff. And I was like, dang, this dude's because there's a few times too that I was like, yeah, I don't know if I trust that this guy is actually in love with her. Cause they show a few parts where he almost bites her, but he kind of pulls away from it. So I was kind of not sure, but this was the part where I was like, okay, yeah, he's really in love with this woman.
Yeah, exactly. He kind of, is willing to sacrifice himself in order to save her from, or at least to save her from getting taken back to her family that she wants to get away from. She breaks away and goes back to him, tells him that she loves him, and then that she can't go on without him. So, and that's when the wolf guy comes up and like slashes Kyle in the back. Like,
oh yeah, he just kills the crap out of him.
Takes him out. Yeah, he's dead.
And it was it felt like it was out of nowhere too. Like it really took me by surprise.
Yeah, because the last you saw the wolf guy, like he's falling off this huge bridge and just like gets dumped into the waters. You don't know. I mean, you might think like maybe he's not dead, but you wouldn't think he'd be able to get back up there so fast.
No, yeah, man, he just like ripped right through the guy super quickly. I was like, holy crap.
Of course. And so Borgoth tries to blow up the bridge and gets, in doing so, like he sees it's not blowing up, but he's already dived off, and then he sees the bombs kind of exploding from the water below him, and he's just like, oh crap.
Yeah, he's like, dang it.
Yeah.
But, so then the two of them get inside the castle, and then that's when we get introduced to Carmilla, who is like from what I could understand, she's not necessarily a vampire, but the spirit of a vampire that somehow has somewhat of a physical form. I didn't quite get that part, but her actual body is there somewhere in the castle also, but doesn't work or something.
And well, legend has it that she was killed by the Vampire King, who also happens to be Dee's father. And he impaled her with his sword because something about her being incredibly vain and having a bloodlust, hence the name of the movie. So an uncontrollable bloodlust. So she had to be put down, but her spirit still remains and sort of haunts this castle.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's as good an explanation as I can think of anyway.
She sure gets a lot done for being a spirit though. Like, man, she kept that place in good shape. It's very nice and tidy. So,
well, I guess with no one else living there, what are you going to do?
Well, yeah, I mean, but I don't see any dust anywhere. Like, she knows what she's doing for being a spirit. So,
yeah.
Dee shows up and just kills Meyer really fast. I mean, like, it's not even a fight. It just slashes right through the guy.
No, Dee doesn't kill Meyer.
Well, he kind of does. At least it makes you think that he does.
Yeah.
Meyer just pieces himself back together, but like 20 minutes later.
And you see Dee, or the form of Dee, just kind of turn into all these bats and just kind of disperse out. And that's something you start to see more often as these illusions come about, is they just turn into bats and then fly away. So this is the control that Carmilla still has over this castle. She can still form these illusions and kind of not necessarily in a completely lethal way all the time, but she tries to, at a certain point, trick everyone who's still alive into basically getting themselves killed. Like, she tries to walk Layla under a chandelier as she drops it. And I think it's Dee that saves her from that.
Definitely works on Borgoth, because that dude gets killed. Well, and not so much killed as he gets turned into like a vampire-ish thing also.
Yeah. You don't see this happen necessarily, but.
Well, at first what happens is like because he's seeing everyone's seeing these visions. He sees, his two brothers that are dead, and he thinks they're alive again and just held captive. So he's heading to them, and then something like stabs through him.
Oh, he gets shot in the back with arrows.
Yeah. And then like the next we see of him, all of a sudden he is some sort of vampire or beast or something.
He takes Layla, and then he's threatening to bite her and turn her. And basically Dee's there, and he's just like, back off and, drop your weapon and all this. And then that's when we get to see Grove make his triumphant return.
Oh my God. Yeah. That was awesome. Like, I guess he injected himself. Dude just comes in and just blows everything to hell. And
well, he grabs Borgoth and uses his literal last ounce of strength to self-destruct and blow him up. So that was a really cool scene. Yeah, Charlotte gets bitten, and then her blood drains out, and that's what resurrects
her body.
Carmilla's body is all of her blood.
So Meyer's fighting her spirit and trying to avenge Charlotte, and then Dee kills the body that's in the middle of resurrecting, and he's like, nope.
Yeah, what's really cool about that is you see as he's charging towards Carmilla, her body, you see it kind of like flash back and forth between his father's sword and his sword, and his father's sword and his sword. So it's like almost a repeat. History repeats itself, and it's again she's taken out by at least kin of the Vampire King. So, and
Camilla's body was just this big old red, goopy, soupy mess.
Yeah, I mean, it was essentially just kind of blood trying to reform the body.
Yeah, it was pretty sick. But yeah, that thing got dead. That thing got real dead.
Yeah, it got dead, real dead.
And then, I guess, because, for fun, the castle starts falling apart. So at that point, after all that is done, Dee is still like, well, I'm still going to grab this girl's body, take it back because I need my money. Myers like, no, she's mine. I was supposed to take her to, what was it they keep calling it? Was it the Star City or City of Stars or something like that?
Yeah, like the City of Stars. The
City of Stars.
That's such a heartbreaking scene though, when he finds out that, or basically like she's not dead yet. Like Charlotte is just on the floor, kind of unconscious. Meyer goes down to try to save her. And then in the process, like he has her in his arms and she's kind of saying her last words to him. And you just see like, even though like he's undead or whatever, you see his heart get broken by her just dying in his arms. And that's such a sad scene. And he's almost on the verge of tears. It's so sad. And at this point, you think that it's just like, okay, well, it can't get any worse. And then that's when Dee comes in like, all right, well, I'm going to take the body back. So
yeah, Dee's like, all right, fork it over, buddy. You're done with it. You've had your playtime.
It's like, you don't need it anymore. Like, what are you going to do? And what's the romantic side of that is he still wants to take it to the City in the Stars and help her escape her family and all of that. So
yeah,
even outside of life. So that was just a really cool scene. And also in addition to that, like you said before, he was restraining himself from biting her, even though she like wanted to be bitten. Like she wanted to have all of him and be with him. And he was refraining from that. As much as he craves the blood, he was refraining from it because he didn't want her to basically be like him and live for eternity craving blood. And but at the same time, like that would have not necessarily saved her life, but she still would have been with him had he decided to turn her.
Yeah. And then we get Layla saving the day by robbing her corpse. And like she snatches her ring off her finger, and I was like, why is she stealing right now? But then, I mean, there was a smart thing to it. It just made me laugh at first. And she kind of flicks the ring through the air while Dee's like trying to kill Meyer because Meyer wants to keep the body. Dee wants the body to bring back as proof. Dee like stabs through Meyer's chest, but doesn't get his heart. And Meyer's like, why did you not stab my heart? And it's because I guess Layla knew that Dee would see the ring and know that was enough. So instead of killing Meyer right there, he just kind of injures him to get him to back off. And he's like, I can take this ring back to her parent or her dad and just collect my money that way. So it's just like, all right, got the ring. Peace out, brah. And he kind of exits.
Yeah. And they get on the ship, or Meyer gets on the ship with Charlotte's body, and they start taking off.
Ooh, that was okay. So that scene was jumping the shark for me when Dee and Layla got outside, because the whole time I just thought when they said like the City in the Stars and stuff like that, I just thought that was a very romantic like metaphor for some city where they would be safe, like a safe haven. And I was like, oh, it sounds romantic. No, literally, they're taking a rocket ship into space. I was like, what?
Well, if you watched at the beginning, like they actually show in the prologue, I guess. Is it prologue? Yeah.
Yes.
They show in the prologue where it's got all those like spaceships in space, and they're talking about how vampires used to flourish, but now are on the verge of extinction. And so it's something that they show you ahead of time. They don't explain it much, but you get a little bit of it.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't thinking of it when that happened. I was like, wait a minute. The part of this castle is a rocket ship, and they're literally blasting off into space. And I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Well, yeah, Carmilla even explains it too. She's like, I don't know if it's still going to work, but good luck.
Joseph, you underestimate my capacity to pay attention. Well, so I remember that scene with Carmilla, and she calls it something like her flying apparatus or something. Yeah. And I I'm like, oh, it must be like, they're getting on like an airship or a blimp or, some steampunky sort of thing.
Yeah. My assumption is that in the same way that if werewolves were to land on the moon, they would have, permanent full moon.
Ooh.
If vampire is out in space, then he would have permanent darkness and be able to strive there. That is my assumption.
I like that. I like that assumption. And then we get to see the scene where it's like farther in the future, and there's a funeral, and there's a little girl that kind of looks like Layla, and Dee's kind of in the distance. The little girl runs up to him, and she's like, "Oh, you're here to see my grandma." And he's like, yeah, just kind of, paying a debt to an old friend. She didn't think there would be anyone to mourn her. I'm glad she was wrong, kind of thing. And the little girl's inviting him to come over because, who wouldn't invite a stranger to come into their house? But he's just kind of like, hey, nope, and rides off. And the little girl's like, oh, fun.
He was just saying, like, I was just, repaying a debt to an old friend. And then he rides off, but he smiles at her on the way out. So it's kind of a nice way to close that out. Well, Chris, looks like it's about time we send our inner kids out on a routine vampire hunt with the Marcus brothers while we eat all their Halloween candy. And then, if they get back, we'll see what they thought of Vampire Hunter D, Bloodlust.
This cartoon was a little bit freaky, but there was some cool fights and monsters, even if I didn't really understand what some of them were supposed to be. But hey, there were also vampires and pretty girls, and even a spaceship. Also, D is totally cool, and we had the same nickname because my friends always tell me I'm a huge D. So I gave this cartoon 4 bowls of Sand Manta cereal out of 5.
All I can say about this one is, wow! This one goes right for the jugular. Outstanding action sequences, intriguing characters, a truly tragic love story, and gorgeous animation to top all that off. To me, there really aren't any spots where this is truly lacking. This horror-themed, monster-filled, blood-soaked future goth film stands decapitated heads above the rest. Overall, I'd give Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust 5 big bowls of conveniently timed Robo-Horse cereal out of 5, and I highly recommend placing this on your Halloween watch list. One of my main takeaways from this movie is that if they ever truly want to keep me captivated by a romantic flick, all they need to do is surround it with monsters and gore. In other words, the key to my heart is a stake right through someone else's.
I mean, I don't know if I should have been watching it at that age, but hey, what are you going to do?
Well, vampires. Kids are gonna watch vampires. I mean, look at the whole Twilight thing. Look at that.
Ugh, don't even mention that.
You saw how that goes. That's vampires.
How about we just reflect back on Monster High? There's some good vampires in that. That's age appropriate.
Still a better story than Twilight.
Oh yeah.
So do you have any final thoughts on Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust?
I just think this is, even if you're not a fan of anime, I think that there's a lot to dig about this movie if you're a horror fan and if you can stand a lot of blood and a lot of gore and decapitations. So I guess there's a very specific audience for it maybe, but overall I think that there's a lot to enjoy, and violence aside, it's got a really cool story to it. And even if it didn't have to do so much with all these monsters and things attacking, I think that at its core, it's a very strong story, and it's really kind of heartbreaking, which is weird to say about monster love, I guess. But hey, this is what it has going for it. So I really dig this movie. I haven't seen the original one from 85, but I kind of want to just as a comparison, but because I've heard people say that the story of that one is even better, even though the animation of this one is better. So it might be a trade-off to go back and watch that one as well, but I don't think it's a direct continuation either, so it may not be necessary. So you can watch them as standalones, but I definitely recommend checking this one out, if for nothing else, and just to see how beautiful the animation is.
Yeah, the animation was just amazing looking. It was super fluid. The use of light and the shadow gave it this like really realistically gritty feel. And also I was kind of surprised to find myself feeling honestly kind of emotionally drained by the end of this movie, because so many characters that you get to know and like just die, and usually in horrible ways. I mean, there's hardly anybody left by the end of this movie, and I didn't really realize how much I appreciated some of those other characters until that point. So, and then, obviously there's a few things that I kind of criticized, as we were watching. So, like the lack of explanation about the Barbaroi, which I thought were the coolest and the scariest characters of this whole thing. And also, and this is what surprises me about the English being done first, is I thought that the English audio was not mastered well at all, because I don't know if it was the same with the one that you watched, but the voice levels just seemed way below the sound effects and the music at times. So I had to like really crank things up to hear the characters. Though if there was a sound effect or like music or a fight or something, I'd have to turn the speakers back down because there was that much of a dramatic difference between the two. And then, every once in a while, like a character would yell or something and it would just blow your eardrums too. So that got kind of annoying, having to play with the volume so much. So I don't know if that was just because I watched a poor version of it, or if the audio was literally just mastered that badly with the final product. But hopefully the Japanese one isn't as harsh as far as that goes.
I mean, I didn't notice that, I guess, but maybe I've just seen it so many times that I kind of know what they're saying anyway, so I can kind of glaze over that. Sure. I could kind of see what you're talking about, though, because sometimes the voices are a little low, depending on the scene.
Well, yeah, D especially, he talks quieter than everybody else. So he was the hardest to listen to because his voice was just so low and quiet. That wore on me a little bit, but I mean, I still was just so sucked into the story that I enjoyed it regardless.
Yeah, for sure. And kind of like you were saying, it's basically a really sad ending. Nobody really wins, I guess. It's not like a happy ending for anyone, except maybe Layla, but that's after she's dead. Yeah.
I'm assuming D got what did he ask for, like $20 million?
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess it is a happy ending for D. He did get his money, I'm assuming, but otherwise, not a happy ending for anyone.
Yeah, if I got $20 million, I would count that as a happy ending.
Layla's happy ending was after death, D came to her funeral. That's about all she got.
Yeah.
Yeah. But she did have a family, so I guess that's great for her. Well, listeners, looks like our milk supply is now run dry, so it's time for us to say goodbye. And next week, we'll be watching
Big Mouth, suggested via, me and Joseph. Because it's funny. We want to talk about it.
Hilarious.
It's fun.
I can't wait to talk about that one.
We spent a lot of time last week watching this, so we're excited to talk about it.
Well, thanks everybody for joining us during our October celebration. It's been a lot of fun. I always love watching monster-themed things and horror-themed things in general, so can't wait till next year.
Yes. Yes.
What he said.
Yeah.
Well, once again, I'm Joseph.
And I'm Chris.
And we'll see you next Saturday.
Presented by Nerdsloth,
a place for lazy nerds.
If you like what you heard, consider donating at patreon.com/nerdsloth so we can continue bringing you quality shows. Be sure to also leave us a review and share your favorite episodes and clips on social media. If you're looking for more content, visit us at nerdsloth.com.